And everybody, I hope you all get ready and have your questions ready for Ryan. So happy to have you all here. Shout out to everybody that's here viewing our interview. Not really interview, our chat. And we've been chatting, okay? We've been chatting. But we are going to really get down into it now. Yes.
All right.
Ryan, hello.
Full screen. Are we here? We're here now.
We're here. Okay. So, Ryan, you are here in our Local Wonders series. You are a wonder to behold. I want to know about you, what brought you to be someone that wants to help, engage, support, educate, give to entrepreneurs. And this series is about bringing people on that would normally not get opportunities to share their story. And also, I want to know personally, what's your advice to entrepreneurs? Because you have a different lens as someone that provides what you provide to entrepreneurs. How can they be ready to come and work with you? It's just so much. And I just want you just to get started. Tell us about Ryan.
Yeah. Such a character, right? Where do I begin? But now, jokes aside, now thank you so much for the introduction. Incredibly happy and blessed to be here. I think first things first, right? Like, for one, I work for WeFunder, right? I'm very, very fortunate to be inside the space. WeFunder is the #1 investment crowdfunding platform inside of the entire US. Whoop, had to represent. We allow for anybody to invest in startups that they love, right? And inversely, founders can raise anywhere from $50,000 all the way up to $5 million in capital through our platform, right? So what I do, I lead Southeast expansion for the company, connecting with different accelerator programs, venture capital firms, entrepreneurship centers, and what have you, and generating deal flow, right? I also form strategic partnerships to build resources that founders can utilize when they're crowdfunding on the platform. And I specifically work with underrepresented founders, Black founders, LGBTQ plus founders, female founders, in order to navigate the crowdfunding process on our platform and successfully raise. Everything from helping them build their campaign profile page to forming strategy so that they can bring those dollars in and create opportunity for those around them. So that's what I do currently. As far as why I care so much about serving founders, right? Well, I'm a former founder myself. My journey began about 5 years ago or so when I got to the University of Memphis. I'm a University of Memphis alum. Go Tigers go. I bleed blue. Penny Hardaway, the whole nine. We represent. But that said, I have always been really fascinated to understand how communities could go through economic shifts, right? My family's from Memphis. My grandma's from Memphis as well. And, she lives in South Memphis, and she would always talk about how thriving of a Black community that it was in the early stages. My grandmother and my grandfather, they got there at the beginning of white flight, right? So they were one of the first 2 Black families in the entire block. They built onto the house. They really cemented and built a home there. And they've been there to see all new families come in, right? Black businesses come and go, right? The education system like thrive and dip, right? And she would always talk about coming up how, the neighborhood was community oriented, right? The schools didn't always have the most funding, but people were active, present. Parents were there, right? Like there were businesses, there was an economy that was supported. And, during the 80s and 90s, due to systemic reasons and, the influx of, drugs and what have you, the community began to dip and things began to change. And coming up, that was always really interesting for me to wrap my head around, right? And when I got to Memphis for school, and I would go to South Memphis to visit my grandma, and I had friends in Whitehaven, and I go see them and stuff. It cemented wow, Black communities were heavily impacted, right, during the drug era and the increased policing and stuff that happened as a result of that. So what causes that stuff? So what I naturally thought, well, government could probably do something. So I began working inside of the political field for various political candidates. I was the president of the College Gems at the University of Memphis, so I did some grassroots organizing and stuff like that. Worked for various campaigns, and I quickly learned, being inside of the political space, that in order for a progressive movement or a grassroots cause to really take form, you need resources, because we're in a capitalistic society, right? You need to purchase resources, you need to back influence, right, and momentum. And a lot of that comes down to money and knowing where to place money, right? And after being on the front lines of a lot of these initiatives, supporting these candidates and taking these losses, right, in an area in which our opponents and the opposition was overfunded, I thought there has to be another way. So I pivoted towards entrepreneurship, because I was like, well, if no one else is going to go out and get the money, I'll go make the money. When I get it, I'll come back and then we'll give it another shot. So I pivoted towards entrepreneurship, and I started my first company called Compass. What we did at Compass, the idea around it initially was to be a blight remediation company, right? Like, low income areas have low property values, which makes it bad for businesses. Businesses don't want to be there because there isn't much of a employee base or a customer base that they can really tap into, right? So the idea was to beautify these areas, increase the property values. Hopefully that can attract businesses. They can employ people in the neighborhoods and in the communities. That can increase the income level, and that can, because school funding is directly tied to the income levels in the regions that they're housed, right? So that was the idea. Really pie in the sky, it wasn't very sustainable. So we pivoted, and I started my first company where we started transporting HVAC parts to technicians in the field. So right after they do an assessment of an HVAC unit, they call our service. We had partnerships with wholesale providers. We would run the parts that they need to complete HVAC units and get them running in 30 minutes or less, right? That got some traction. Pitched at 3686 in 2019. Went through an accelerator program, the Delta I Fund. Did a lot of in-depth customer discovery and learned a whole lot about the process of organic growth and the importance of data, right? And then after some of that, the University of Memphis noticed the traction that our team was getting, and I was hired on as an EIR and or an advisor and a consultant to students and alumni at the University of Memphis with small businesses and startups. So through that work, I've worked on well over 30, probably close to 50 companies, if not more. Helping them advise and build their strategy, helping them develop customer discovery tactics where they can bring in data that can be valuable and used to generate money and lead to sales. And I've worked with a lot of founders, and I've been through the ringer. So, while working on that in Compass, my co-founder and I were starting a benefit corporation to incubate Black business owners in Memphis that didn't have access to the startup ecosystem. We found that when I was pitching in these accelerator programs and talking to these investors, that folks that don't go to college don't have access or awareness of this whole new world, right? That's linked to wealth building, right? And there was a dissonance. Although the resources in place would always claim to serve everybody, and they do, right? They're not targeted towards the individuals and the communities that need that economic development the most. So the idea around Link was to be the actual link between the resources, the programming, the money, and those people with talents in low income areas that were outside of the sphere but needed the same acceleration like anybody else, right? And we were working on Link, developing programming at the time, and working on Compass. I was advising companies, and my co-founder and I were working on an additional company that connected students to odd jobs, right? That was a venture-backed startup. We were really good friends with the founders, and they moved on to another idea. So my co-founder and I were running that company, Compass, Link at the same time while I was advising. There was a lot going on. And then the pandemic hit, and we had to stop everything, right? Yeah, money dried up. Our partners with the company that we were running, like Quick Fix, the venture-backed one, they ended up white labeling the technology. We weren't growing enough for their liking. They had to move on. It happens. Like, it makes sense. They made the right move, right? Compass, we really took a dip at the beginning of the pandemic because we were so focused on Link, and that kind of went down. And, Link, we really didn't have the resources, and, it was just tough, right? Like, our entire team was like 24 and under, right? Our moms were calling us and saying, "Come home, it's not safe outside." We really didn't have time to work on the business. It was after shutting down all those businesses, I went into a real founder depression, right? Like, my identity had wrapped up in providing support, right? And being
speak about it now.
Right. So that said, when that was stripped from me, I had to figure out truly what my purpose was, right? Like, I had to look squarely in the mirror. And in a way, I thank God for it, because running that fast, you don't really take the time to realize what you don't know, right? So while I was advising companies, I was like,
listen, y'all.
But
listen, say that one more time. Running that fast.
When you're running that fast, you don't really have time to figure out what you don't know, right? And the universe, the good Lord, whatever you want to say, I say the good Lord, he slowed me down so that I could take time and take stock of what I needed to learn in order to be better and truly provide that support, right? I was running too quick. So we had to shut everything down, and I had to really figure out what my purpose was, right? And whether it was me developing my companies or working with these founders to help them turn their dreams, their passions, right, into an actual sustainable business that can employ people in those communities, right? I realized that the real cornerstone to all of that, outside of resources, outside of support and strategy, was access to capital, right? And a clear understanding at the point at which you need capital, right? And what you need to do to get there in order to organically and sustainably grow, right? So I realized, although I was going to be developing a incubator program, and I was working with these founders at U of M and outside, right? I didn't know much about capital formation, let alone capital allocation and really where that came from, right? I was struggling to raise money for Compass, the other company I was working on, and Link, right? You tell me. I didn't know, right? So when it stopped, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a VC, right? I'm going to be a venture capitalist, work for a firm, and figure out how to build a fund. And from there, I can get proper access to capital. So during the pandemic, I did an internship at the Nashville Entrepreneurship Center under the great Haley Sapolsky. Love her to death. She's done so much for me, and she's a real ecosystem builder here in Nashville. I would recommend all of you guys to follow her on Twitter and LinkedIn. Really about the cause, really for the people. Love Haley to death. She's incredible. She was my boss, and we would have a lot of in-depth conversations about ecosystem building, right? And as her intern, knowing my interest, I did research on what it took to develop a proper tech ecosystem in a city, right? Now, mind you, this has been a long story, but the motivation around this is figuring out how to stop the degradation, right? The dipping and the disintegration, right, of a healthy economic community, a Black community inside the city, right? I'm trying to stop displacement brought on by gentrification, right? And a lot of those things, right? So like the vision and the passion had always been around economic development. So ecosystem building is directly tied to job creation, which begets wealth, right? Which can improve education. So I was doing that research on what Boston did, what San Francisco did, what Charlottesville is doing, right? What Charlotte is doing, what Alabama, Atlanta, all these different regions all across the country. And, I found that in order for a proper tech ecosystem to develop, there needs to be a strong university system where talent comes out of, right? There needs to be access to funding, venture capital firms, a strong banking industry for lines of credit, and equity-based financing. And from there needs to be resources around and programming to help accelerate the ideas into projects, to businesses, to venture scalable companies, right? So looking at Nashville and Memphis, the pieces were all there. Like all the regions and areas that I wanted to work with were there. However, where there was an issue was that most companies weren't venture backable, right? So the resources in place to rapidly scale companies and get a 10x return didn't match the companies that were coming out of the Black community. We're talking Main Street businesses, restaurants, right? Movie theaters, beauty supply stores. These are very capital intensive businesses that are not meant to go on a high venture scale because it costs so much to run and scale. So you need to organically grow a little bit differently, location by location, right? And even for software. So in my time with the founders that I was working with,
yes,
even myself, right, with my company, I thought I needed venture capital. I thought I needed to be on a high growth trajectory, but I didn't. And the question became, well, for those businesses, 90% of which don't belong on that venture track, which is fine, what do those other 90% do? What can be done maybe outside of, lines of debt, right? Or credit, or what other alternatives were there? So I was doing some internships, and then I came across, I'm talking so fast, I'm feeling it. I came across the,
we here. Listen, I actually need you to actually do, like, I know you're excited, but I do. We, as an entrepreneur founder myself, don't go too quick because it'll go right over, right? We might need to have you come back and break it down.
I hear that.
Break it down. Okay.
I hear that. And
Okay.
almost done here. So after making that link between the businesses coming out of the Black community and the access to capital and whether or not that fit was there, which it wasn't, what was next? So I became aware of crowdfunding, right? Did some more research on what crowdfunding is, and it became the great equalizer in my mind, right? No matter what business that you have, whether it's a Main Street brick and mortar or a high growth startup, there's enough flexibility in which you can organically grow, right? Improve your customer base and reel in that capital that you need if you're able to do the work. So that's why I joined WeFunder, and that's why I'm here.
Wow. Okay, I'm just going to go back over some couple points. I have to say, you said the great equalizer is crowdfunding.
Put it in bold.
Do y'all hear me? Everybody. The great equalizer is crowdfunding between the Black community, underserved community, and resources.
Right.
Crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to tell us all more about that. But he also said, I had to take a tough look in the mirror at myself to find out how do I serve? What do I do? He also, as you can tell, has experience with businesses and being a founder and trying to grow it. And he understood when to step out. Okay.
It's tough.
Intimate. Like this is information that you need to know as an entrepreneur, because we always have all these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Isaiah, we're going to get to your questions. I'm going to hold all the questions until we have that at 6:45. Okay? You got a couple more minutes. We got to get all the information. So you keep putting questions and he'll answer all of them during that time.
Of course.
Another thing, he talks about, he knows, what a rich heritage is from the lessons and stories from your grandmother. Mm-hmm. You don't even understand. That's one reason why you're set up to do this work for people, because you understand what it's like to have community that's thriving and working together. How do we do it? Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding means that's your people that's helping you. That's your people helping you. Another thing that I want to mention is being connected to the right people. You talked about Haley. Mm-hmm. It's called her. It's the what? Say your last name.
Zapolsky, but she goes by Zap.
Mm-hmm. She goes by Zap. Yes, I know Zap. She was doing the Zaps raps. And I miss her so, because that's who was sending me all my information from the EC. Okay, she's not there anymore. We have, I think, Brian now.
Brian, good dude.
I'm gonna make sure that I know Brian as well. Mm-hmm. Anyway, being connected to certain people, she allowed you to step back and research. That's one thing that you mentioned. You gotta research the market. You have to understand your business. For real, you need to be the expert in your business. I have so many questions for you.
Sure.
Is there anything else from what I just said that you want to say before I get into asking you more questions?
I'll cut it off there. I'll let the questions lead from this point.
Well, I want to know, how much hand holding do you do with people? Mm-hmm. Like me working with entrepreneurs. You have to hold their hand. They spend a lot of time wanting to act like they know, but they don't.
No one knows. No one
knows. Say that again.
No one knows, and that's okay. Like the whole fake it till you make it thing can be so true, especially when you're a founder trying to build, and figure it all out at the same time. Like there's going to be gaps. Like there's things that you don't know, and that's okay. I just wish there was more transparency.
I'm gonna quote you. I'm gonna quote you on that. Nobody knows. I'm gonna put serious. This is good. Nobody knows. So let's come on. If you all ask questions, keep on asking questions. So then maybe we'll know something.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
But to answer your question, I'll reiterate just one more time because that story was really long, but it's important for context.
Yes.
WeFunder is an investment crowdfunding platform, which is the key, right? So what separates us, and I'm actually touching on Isaiah's question a little bit from like
Okay.
Kickstarter and GoFundMe, is that is donation-based crowdfunding, right? They give money in exchange to see a product or service, grow or to support a cause. That's what it is. With WeFunder, there is a tangible return in exchange for your investment, right? Securities, equity in a company, and or profit, right, from a loan contract that's secured or developed by the founder, right? So that's the difference. You offer a piece of your company that you choose how much, and or you structure a loan contract with the people that you're crowdfunding from to pay them back, right? And that's the difference, and that's what makes the world of difference. So to your initial question, how much hand holding is done, I work with founders to lay the foundation, right? The truth is, it's fundraising. And it's not easy, right? It's never easy, whether you're going from crowdfunding or if you're raising from VC, if you're talking to loans and banks trying to get approval, it's always going to be tough, right? You're always going to need to be conveying the value, right? And building awareness around it. But I help founders lay that foundation. I help them create a profile page that can be attractive to their customers, their family, their friends, and investors alike, right? And I also help them build out campaign strategy that they can utilize to get the first dollar in their campaign and then be off to the races. And from there, help them handle investor questions, help them, tweak strategy where it needs to be tweaked, connect if possible, and successfully raise. I'm not all hands throughout the entire process, because at that point I'd be running the company, right? But I help with the foundation, and I'm always there on their shoulders if they need anything.
Excellent. Okay. So you mentioned the pandemic and how devastating it was. Do you think that you can go further into that? Because there are people who are limping right now because of it.
Yeah.
And how then WeFunder can help them because they're limping because they just came out of a pandemic. And also, not just pandemic. In Nashville, we had a tornado that hit us. Then a week later, we can't go out the house because it's a pandemic, right?
Right.
And so, yes, let's talk more about that.
Yeah. So I'll go over a couple of benefits of investment crowdfunding through WeFunder, just to provide some additional context, right? So you are able to raise money from both rich, accredited angel investors, as well as working class regular people in the same space, which can be very powerful, right? So you can use the money that you generate from your customers, your supporters, your consumers, right, as a base to garner the attention of a rich angel investor or a VC that you otherwise wouldn't have access to, right? And then leverage that to say, hey, I have this amount of money that's pulled from my community organically, tack on an additional amount so I can close the round, right? That's a lot more compelling than going hat in hand with nothing and trying to get investment, right? So to your point, what crowdfunding does, it's one of the most effective marketing pushes that you can really have, because the idea around it is to get your network, your community, right, your customers financially aligned with the success of your business. And in doing so, they're incentivized to write reviews, to purchase the product or service, right, to share with their people and grow the business. So a lot of the companies that raised with WeFunder in the fall prior to the pandemic, and it's not all of them, but there was a sizable amount, right, that raised with us before the pandemic hit. They were able to coast and even grow on the back end because their investors were keeping them going, right? They were writing reviews. They were you can build a cult-like following for your brand that's always going to be there through thick and thin, because your money is attached to their money, right, and vice versa, right? And what's really powerful is that your customers can become your investors. So as they purchase what you're doing, they're making you rich and them rich, right? And that's the incentive. So around the pandemic, right, for a lot of these businesses that have been negatively impacted, if you have a loyal customer following, right, or even just a following in general, if you can leverage those people and say, hey, this is my COVID expansion plan, right? You know what I've been able to do because you purchased my product or service. I was there for you, right? Let's come together, right? Help me get back, and then leverage your network so that we can grow on a trajectory where we can all make our dreams come true and become financially wealthy, right? That's the power in the pitch with crowdfunding. So I recommend for a lot of those businesses, it would be hard because, they'd be affected by COVID, to try and convince investors to contribute. But the thing is, if you can start with the people that were already supporting you beforehand, that's a pretty good foundation that can be used to garner the attention and snowball some of the traction that can help you raise money and then get out of the hole. So
awesome. Now we have 5 minutes until we go into questions, and I want to ask you to share a case study, or maybe even case studies of that you have out of those 50 companies that you've worked with, or companies you've worked with you with WeFunder. Stories of, take us when they showed up, what it was like, what you did for them, where they are now.
Well, 4 months in, right? The average campaign usually takes around 3 to 4 months. So the companies that I'm working with now, they're not on the other end of the of the spectrum, right? However, I will speak to one campaign, Black founded company, Curl Mix. They provide shampoos, conditioners, hair care products for Black women and Black people as well, right? They were able to raise over $6 million through WeFunder, right? They were formerly on Shark Tank, a husband and a wife. They came together looking at growing their business and their brand, and they leveraged their customers and used that as traction, and they were able to close all that money on WeFunder, right? And to speak about some of the companies that I'm working with, they'll likely be on, the show or something like that in the near future. They come in, I'll work with them to help them build the structure and the foundation, and it looks different, right? Like I'm working with a founder now. I'm not going to speak too much on them because I don't want to say too much before they launch, right?
Right.
But I'm working with a founder now, very well connected at TSU, has a great network in, Memphis and Atlanta, and really involved in the tech ecosystem and space, right? And he has an events app. We're working with him. I'm working with him to build incentives and a campaign strategy that leverages his strengths, which are event promotion, right? To build a stream of events that can be used to catalyze and create promotion and get more money for him. Right. There's another founder that I'm working with. She has an app that helps women navigate the prenatal process, right, before they give birth, right, and how difficult that process can be. She has a very loyal email list, right. She doesn't always engage with a lot of her users, and she's just getting started. She's very much in the early stage, but we're working with her to go back through those email lists, right, schedule meetings with those people, have that one-on-one. Right, and then offer this to them. Right, you're on the email list. You've already, committed to buying, the app. Right, why not have a piece of ownership in the company? Right, not only where we can advocate for your health as a woman, but your financial wealth as an individual as well. Right, so the strategy looks different in different ways. You don't have to have 15,000 people, which I guess isn't a lot, but like 1 million people on Twitter or social media to follow you. You can leverage your base in any regard, and we can work with it, right? And that's what I do to help out founders. I can't promise success for everybody, but I can promise you a foundation, right? Support, and we're going to figure this whole thing out, together. We're all 6 degrees of separation from someone who can change our lives, right? So why not work towards getting that yes and getting that money in so that you can close and become successful with your business. So that's the long way of saying Curl Mix, the companies I'm working on, TBD, and I look forward to coming back next time to talk a little bit more about those success stories. I got to keep it a little hush right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, thank you so much for even sharing that. I can't wait to hear the full success stories and case studies of other individuals. But I think that you are aligned to be someone that can take people and build a foundation for people and share the things that they don't know so that they can put in more work. Like they need wins in order to continue to want to win. Like you said, snowball effect. It's imperative to the business. But also you said, I can't say that you're going to succeed. No, you can't, but they can, and they have to show up and say it's going to happen and make it happen. Because it has a lot to do with push, because people need push in order to even be, like you said, I love that cult-like following. Because we actually do. We all have some early adopters and people who, no matter what you do, they're going to follow you. Yeah. And so it seems like to me, and I just want to help you. I want to help you see if this is what you mean when you said, is it that you want people to actually put themselves out there so that they like, know, and trust you? And then they can follow you and they will want to take a bit and grow together?
Yes, of course, right? I mean, trust is everything, especially like in the startup ecosystem in space, right? Like for early stage founders or underrepresented founders, right? I mean, for people that may not even be exposed to the tech ecosystem, when they find themselves in it, it can be somewhat daunting. And in some ways, certain pockets can be predatory, right? So, there's a lot of guarding around what do I like, who can I tell what to, right? Where do I go that can actually provide help, right? Like there's so much education that needs to be done around capital formation, the legal aspect, marketing, promotion, building, right? Scaling and growing. And when you come in with just an idea or just something, hell, even when you have a fully functioning business, there's always a gap, right, in that wheel that you may not have very much depth in, right? So there's a lot of guard coming into it. I'd simply just want to communicate with people, that I'm here, to first establish trust. Then from there, create a plan in which you can win and WeFunder can, support you. I'll say this just real quick, and then this will be the last thing I'll touch on. But, I say on a lot of the calls, you need one of these three things in order to be successful in a WeFunder campaign.
All right, come on, three things. I'm ready.
Right? And I would really equate this very similar to building a fire, right? So either you would want to have money lined up to put into the campaign, right? It's easy for people to invest in a campaign when they see that there's a foundation and when they see that there's money, right? That's one piece. If you don't have that, have community. And if you don't have one, you need to build one, right? You want a place in a space where you can conjure up excitement about your campaign and communicate with people, right? Like the best entrepreneurs are able to scale and grow and get more investment because they're legendary at communicating with their investors. Because it becomes a lot less like you give me the money and I'll run off and trust me, I'm good for it, right? And it becomes we're in this together, right? And if you can communicate well with the people that give you money and get them on board, right, to see the trajectory, tell them the goods and the bads, tell them the wins, right? Like hype them up. That will conjure more investment from them, and they're more incentivized to bring other people, right? So you need to build community around your raise, around your brand, and you want a medium to communicate with them through, like a social media following, a newsletter, a blog, right? An email list, something. So you need money lined up. If you don't have that, you need community and a space to communicate with them through, or build a community if you don't have one. And lastly, you're going to need hustle and strategy, right? No matter who we're talking about, we all reach a point where our network reaches a ceiling, right? And we've talked to everyone in our immediate circle that we can talk to, right? Like it's going to reach a point where your family, your friends, your customers, they just want a regular dinner. They don't want you selling anymore, right? They don't want you pitching or being like, Mr. Wonderful or anything. Like you're going to need to figure out a way to expand awareness of the campaign outside of your immediate network once you reach that cap, right? And that looks like reaching out to different media publications and asking them to write articles on you. That's free. Like they don't charge for that, right? Like you can reach out to podcasts and go to speaking events like this and talk about what you're doing, and then link your campaign page to get more money rolled in, right? You can host your own webinars and events to get people excited and revved up, right? And I equate that to a fire. Because much like a fire, I'm a Boy Scout, right? Eagle Scout, so very, very, very happy about it. So build a lot of fires in my day. And it all starts with a spark, right? But sparks can fizzle out, right? So after you get the spark, you need to build the fire. Fire is fueled by oxygen, kindling, and then coals, right? So you need to, once you get that spark, you need to blow on it. You need to add more to it, right? So I would equate the money as a spark, right? How much money might depend on the type of spark. You might have gasoline to start it up and you're good, right? Or you may just have a quick little match, right? But a spark is a spark. Once you have something that's seated in there, you need to build, right? That's the community. Adding some of the adding some of the twigs, right, to get that fire revved up,
Yes.
blowing on it to get some of the oxygen going, right? And then lastly, you need strategy to expand awareness. These are the coals, right? And that's what it looks like. The more that you build on top of this fire, the easier it's going to be for you to get the coals, and then you can, stay warm and succeed. So that's what it comes down to.
Stay warm.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! That's right. Yeah. That's a great imagery. Yes, build the fire.
It's very much like a fire. It's very much like a fire.
That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. But fires can go out if you don't feed.
Look, because I like staying warm. Okay, I do.
As do I.
Let's crush these questions real quick. And I know you hit some of them while you were talking, but I want to say them again and have an answer. So let's do, what's the difference between WeFunder, Indiegogo, and Kickstarter? I want to add another caveat to that. You said have money, right? Get some money. Because you do it Indiegogo and Kickstarter, right? Get a little money and bring that over to WeFunder.
Yeah, totally.
Go ahead.
Right. So the difference is, right, for Indiegogo, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, that is regular crowdfunding, right? Where you're raising money for a project or something or a cause, right? People are giving you donations just about, right? That's the difference. WeFunder is in the regulation crowdfunding is the term, but it's investment-based crowdfunding, in which in exchange for a dollar amount, I offer you, right, future equity in my company. It's a security, right? Much like stock. So that's the difference, right? So WeFunder, you're offering like monetary value in exchange for initial investment today, right? Whereas Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you can't sell securities to people. It's just donations, which makes it inversely harder to actually raise the money because, people can just give and be like, cool, or they can have a piece in the company and get rich with you. It's different.
Yes. Okay. It's a win-win scenario with WeFunder. So Isaiah said they get equity. The answer to that question is yes, but you also said that they could do a loan with them, right? So a loan contract.
There are equity-based campaigns and there are debt-based campaigns, and founders have complete and utter control in which route they want to go, right? So they can offer future shares or equity in the company, right, via a SAFE or a convertible note, and they can set the terms on what that looks like, valuation and all that stuff. And I'll talk more about this probably another time, right? It can be really dense. Or they can do a simple loan contract where the founder sets the interest rate. They can determine when the payback begins on the principal and all of that, right? So founders have complete and utter control. Some businesses aren't really best to go the equity route. The equity route is really good if you're going to be high growth and if you see yourself on a venture back type of model, right? Where you see a lot of money flooding in. If you're like a restaurant or a small business or a brewery or a coffee shop, all of which do very, very well on WeFunder, a loan contract, makes sense. But there are different ways to, it can be case by case, but there's flexibility, right? So investors can get equity or they can get paid back their principal on the loan that you can create through WeFunder. We have a template, you just fill it in and then get paid the interest on top of that.
So something that I want to reiterate is, you keep saying this, they have the power. I think that going back to that you talk about being a predator, there's a lot of entrepreneurs have been in situations where they've been preyed upon, right?
Yeah.
And so then there's fear and there's guard.
Yeah.
Helping them understand you have power to decide. And he's going to explain to you until you get it and know exactly what you want and what you need for yourself.
Exactly.
The next question, what criteria does a business got to meet to get access to funding via WeFunder?
Such a good question. All these questions are great.
Okay.
But it's a very great question, right? So this is what separates us, because there are other crowdfunding platforms, but WeFunder is the biggest, we're the largest, we're the cheapest, right? But what really, really separates us, and this kind of goes back to the brief conversation we were having before, right? About there being a lot of virtue signaling in tech around diversity and inclusion and trying to be helpful and stuff like that. WeFunder is a public benefit corporation, right? We're a PBC certified and we're mission bound to ensure that access to capital and investing opportunities are available to anyone, regardless of how much they make, regardless of the background or what they look like, right? So that said, we have no due diligence process or criteria for founders that want to raise, right? We allow for the market to decide. That's our argument to the SEC, really, right? Like, we don't need to vet these companies, because if they're not ready, then they won't raise, right? If they're ready, then they'll be successful, right? And that's the argument. So that said, it doesn't matter what stage that you're at. You can raise on WeFunder. It's going to be a hell of a lot of work depending on how early you are, but you can try, right? And that's what it comes down to. And if you don't reach your mark and reach the goal that you're looking for, it's okay. It doesn't work out. No one's going to be banging on your door asking for money and loans and anything like that, right? Like, it's okay. It happens. So, yeah.
Okay, it's taking a chance. Taking a chance, seeing what you can get. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, guess what? This is a risk that you may need to take. Like, this is a good risk to take to see.
I mean, in a way, right? I think there's more of an investor risk than there is a founder risk, right? And for any of you guys who have questions, I'm going to link my email in the chat, and we can schedule some time to really break down what this looks like. There's a lot of like legal minutia around like why this is what it is, but you can launch a campaign, right? And well, no, I'm not going to go down that road because that'll be longer than what we have time for. But there isn't too much of a risk, right? Like, if you don't reach, so you can set a goal for your campaign, right? And please email me if you have more questions, because we can really talk through it. But you can set a goal for your campaign. If you don't reach the goal, then you don't owe anything. That's the thing, right? If you do, then it's fine, right? We don't charge you for failing. And WeFunder doesn't charge you for failing. And if it doesn't work out, then you can just come back and try it again. No harm, no foul, right? And before you reach your goal, no one will have access to the campaign unless you invite them to them. So you don't have to worry about a PR disaster. I mean, it'd be your fault if it didn't happen. You shouldn't have invited all those news outlets. I'm joking, but like, you have complete control over how many people have eyes on this. So you have control over the terms of the deal, the type of contract, right? How much money you want to raise. You can only take what you want, what you need, and how many people know about it. You just got to put in the work. That's all it comes down to, putting in the work and having the foundation. And that's what I'm here to provide.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ryan.
No problem.
What I want to say is, for the people that you're here to support, the underserved, I know that when I met you, you made me feel comfortable. And it already, like, I already knew, yes, I want to work with him. And that's why I had you come here to talk, because it has to be a relationship. Like, you should have a relationship with your banker, a relationship with your accountant. You have to have a relationship with the person that you're going to have doing this kind of work as well. And you have to feel comfortable with them and know that they're not going to screw you. And you kept reiterating at the end of this interview, hey, you have the power. I'm just here to set the stage for you.
Yep.
And help you blow on this fire, get you the piece, remind you of the pieces you need, kind of coach you through the pieces in order to get this fire going.
Yeah.
Great. This is so awesome. Now let's end with some announcements, okay. About WeFunder and anything you want to share about where you're going, what you're doing, if you're speaking anywhere, how they can. You already put your email in there. It's ryan@wefunder.com. If you want to email him, and he will set a meeting with you, or anything else you want to share.
Despite the whole chat, this is actually one area that I'm not super prepared on. Ryan@wefunder.com. Email me there. You can follow me on Twitter at RYCABORN. I made it when I was like 15, so forgive the weird username or whatever. But yeah, follow me on Twitter, follow me on LinkedIn, Ryan Pierce. Email me if you have any questions. I'm in Nashville, but I'm mobile. I get around, so I'm always down to meet, grab some coffee, hop on a call. This is my job. So questions are just as valued as anyone who's raising. Please let me know.
Amazing. Also, I would like to make an announcement that Ryan is going to take over Startup Grind, and he and I are going to collaborate, and he's going to have people here, and he's going to be here often. So that means that you can ask questions every month. You can ask questions, because I see the value of WeFunder, of Ryan being here to provide and to help people understand the importance of this, because even setting the foundation and the marketing and all the pieces that he does with the foundation is parts of the business that people don't understand as entrepreneurs. And it just sets you up for a success if you have everything squared away and you at least have the fire starting and trying to build this fire. So he'll be here every month. So happy to have him to do that. Also with Startup Grind, we have an announcement. You can put your announcements in, go to the Facebook group, the LinkedIn, and it's Nashville Startup Grind chapter. And you can fill in the form for any promotions that you have, any announcements that you have. We just talked about building community. Come on in here and be a part of the Startup Grind Nashville chapter Nashville chapter community. So then you can know all the other entrepreneurs and people that can possibly help you with where you're going. So thank you so much, Ryan. Do you have any last closing thoughts? I'll say that one thing that I enjoyed the most was you saying that nobody knows. I love that. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
and
we're all
so
here
be
to...
gentle with yourself, right? Because nobody knows.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? If we're just transparent and we can lean on each other, can figure it out together. And that's the ethos, right? Like, I'm not an expert in everything, but I know what I know, right? And the stuff that I don't, we'll figure it out together. So
Yeah.
I guess I'll close out with, I'm here to help founders, regardless of the stage, the background, or anything, help them navigate the process and be successful. So whether you're an investor, a founder, an enthusiast, and have questions, if you would like to refer any companies my way, that works out well. We have a referral fee that we can pay you, $2,500. So yes, sir. Yeah, if they file their compliance paperwork, we can do that. So if you're interested in becoming a referral partner, reach out to me. They can be individuals, entities, anything. Let me know.
Oh,
I saved that one for the end, right?
You
I saved that one for the end.
yeah, you didn't tell me that because that's I'm about to be sending people your way, and I was gonna do it for free, but oh my God. Okay. Yeah, we gonna yes. All right. So thank you so much for this time. Thank you guys for being in the chat and listening and being a part of this. For those who are going to see this later, you can send emails to Ryan and check him out monthly, because he's going to have people come in, and it'll be something like Ryan's Takeover or something. You'll know when it's going to be him going to be here, so you can come in and interact with the people that he brings.
If I may interject just briefly,
Go ahead.
We will be featuring successful founders on WeFunder that I've worked with and that I've raised in the past, black, white, and different anything. So check it out if you want to learn more about the success stories, their process. A lot has changed in the industry, but one thing hasn't, and that is success on WeFunder. So come on through, and we'll let you know how it works out.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.